Okay, what if I told you that I took this little rig here with my SQF-55 telescope, EF focuser, smart camera, the ASI 2600 MC Air, together with the AM5N on its TC40 tripod. And what if I told you that I took this whole rig, which by the way costs around a total of 5,000 US dollars, I took it to a Bortle 3, Bortle 4 zone, so a zone with much less light pollution than there is here at home in Tokyo, one of the most light polluted cities on Earth. And I pointed this to the Bode and Cigar galaxies, and I got this result. Or that I also took this rig to, again, the same Bortle 3, Bortle 4 zone, and I was able to take this image of the Trifid Nebula, which I think looks really, really cool. Well, of course, if I told you this, the next question would be based on the title and thumbnail of the video. Okay, sure, that's a $5,000 rig, or I don't know, with the new tariffs in the United States, I guess it's a $10,000 rig now. I have no idea anymore. But the question becomes, like, what can a smart telescope like this thing here, the C-Star S50, which, yes, I currently have in equatorial mode because I'm testing that when the weather allows, what can this little thing here achieve? It's a $450, $500 thing. Maybe it's a $1,000 thing now in the United States. I have no idea. But it is definitely cheaper, far cheaper than the rig behind it by a factor of 10 or so. So by an order of magnitude, effectively. So can we compare what this achieves with what that achieves? Okay, so let's have a look at the images that were taken with the C-Star S50 that I have here in a Bortle 3/Bortle 4 zone. So yeah, these are the same images. That is why I was like asking a hypothetical question about this gear, because I have not taken it to a darker zone. The weather here in Japan has been horrible, but I have noticed that one of my subscribers has been posting absolutely amazing images, as you just saw, on Facebook, and those images are taken with the C-Star S50 from a Bortle 3/Bortle 4 zone in Slovenia, and it's like it has an advantage that he takes those images from an altitude of around 1,050 meters. And that guy's name is Andre Fils. I'll put the link to his Astrobin down in the description because you really want to have a look at all of the amazing images he's been able to achieve with the C-Star S50 and the C-Star S30. And I intentionally basically like showed this rig first and put this in your mind that maybe we were going to compare what this can achieve with what the C-Star can achieve, but no, we're not going to do that. We're just going to look at the results that the C-Star S50 can achieve without needing to compare with anything else, because the C-Star S50 is its own tool. And the point of this video is that it is not a toy. It can take absolutely amazing images, especially now that it can use the equatorial mode. So I'll show you how I will go ahead and show you some raw data that Andre kindly provided me with for the Bode Galaxy and for the Trifid Nebula, and how I process that data in a few minutes, it's not going to take long, in PixInsight, and show you again how we can achieve those absolutely amazing results and what the raw data looked like. Then we'll have a quick look at his Astrobin, and I'll also explain why, and this is a doubt that many people still have to this day, like why these images are not AI, they're not downloaded from the internet, they are actually taken by those smart telescopes. And the kicker, by the way, is that Andre, for his Bode Galaxy and Trifid Nebula images, used mostly the Alt-Az mode of the C-Star S50, not the new equatorial mode that lets you have much more hours of imaging for any given amount of time that you give the C-Star on a target. By the way, quickly talking about the equatorial mode, the weather hasn't allowed me to make a video. I have briefly tested it on the C-Star S50. It seems to work amazingly well, and it works great with the C-Star S50 using the Dwarf Lab Dwarf 3 tripod. I'm sorry, Dwarf Lab, because the tripod, you can adjust the angle of the legs So you can have the angle of the legs like that, so you're sure that your sea star is never going to tip over, which is not the case with the main tripod. So I really like this. It's actually usable, and it is also very portable and light. So that's why I have it. I have this a Frankenstein of a ZW sea star on the top, and then a Dwarf Lab tripod at the bottom. Okay, and this is what we're getting in terms of a single subframe. So this is a single exposure of 30 seconds long, taken by Andre from his Boreal 3, Boreal 4 zone. And this is on the Boat Galaxy, which is there, together with the Cigar Galaxy, which is there. So we can see both objects, they're there, but it definitely does not look at all like the final image. So we may be wondering, how do we get the final image? Well, we take all of the sub-exposures, and Andrzej has taken 27 hours worth of sub-exposures to achieve the final image. So this is what we get in terms of the final image after stacking and also doing an operation called drizzling on this image, because the sea star is what we call undersampled, and by drizzling we can try to achieve more resolution than what the native resolution of the sea star is. And again, the image that we get here does not look that amazing, although we are able to see both galaxies seem to have like a lot of details. And what is to me extremely impressive is that there is nebulosity in between those galaxies all around there, which is the IFN, the Integrated Flux Nebula, basically just like dust floating in space, that we're able to capture, because this is amazing. And the sea star, as the title of the video would suggest, and other smart telescopes for that matter, is not a toy. So yeah, we start with this, which is very far from the final image, but let me show you how I would go about processing this. Well, first I will need to do some plate solving on this, which is basically assigning to the image coordinates, so that PixInsight knows exactly where in space, where in the sky this image was taken. So we just go to Script, Astrometry, and Image Solver, and we inherit actually a lot of the details from the Sea Star telescope itself. So I'm just going to say OK and let it do its job. By the way, I'm using PixInsight, as you noticed. This is a 300 euro piece of software, so pretty much almost as much in terms of cost as the Sea Star, although it should not be affected by tariffs. So maybe it's much cheaper now in comparison to rigs in the United States. So it's an expensive piece of software, and I'll be using some tools on top of it that or additional plugins that cost a total of, I think, like 200 something US dollars. So we're talking about software that costs just as much as the Sea Star S50 itself. So yeah, we're taking things seriously. The software is not a toy, definitely not. And the smart telescope is not a toy either. So for now, we've just told PixInsight, our PixInsight has figured out exactly where we were pointing our telescope. And now we can do an operation called a spectrophotometric color calibration. And that's a technique that PixInsight has, where it will look at the stars in the image, and it knows what the actual star spectrum officially is. And so it can try to find a way to make the white balance of the image, the color balance of the image, as close as possible to the ideal, so that it achieves the ideal colors of most of the stars in the image. So it's kind of like a linear regression based on the desired color of the stars. It's not replacing stars, it's not replacing anything in the image, it's just adjusting the white balance. So I'll just use this tool with the default options and apply it to the image. And we get some nice linear regression. You can see each green dot is basically a star, and the linear regression, the line tells us what white balance we have basically gotten. And so we have a white balance that aligns very well with all of the stars and their ideal colors, but the image looks dark. That's fine. We just apply a screen stretch function on the image, and now you can see that the colors are a bit closer than what we would expect for this particular galaxies. Okay, let's keep going. By the way, this whole process of the image is exactly following more or less actually the steps that I have in my ultimate PixInsight guide, which is also on my YouTube channel. It's a long video, but if you ever want to learn the most powerful astrophotography processing software that is available, which is PixInsight, it's the video for you. I'll put the link down in the description and up above if you're interested. Anyway, we are now with this, and now I'm going to use one of my paid add-ons, which is Blur Exterminator, which will perform a deconvolution of the image very efficiently. So I'll just run with the default settings on this image. By the way, the image from the start had its background extracted by André, so I did not have to extract the background. Normally this is a step that we would do first, but it was not necessary in my case. Okay, so now we have the stars are much smaller than it used to be, so this is the before. Okay, before and after. Yeah, much smaller stars, and we also have more details available in the galaxy. I can do a before and after again. Everything is tighter and neater in the galaxy itself. Now, one of the things that is a weakness of the C-Star S50, and I'm not sure exactly what the root cause is for that, but it looks like when you look at the IFN, the data is compressed, almost as if we did not have enough bit depth to really record that data. And like it looks rasterized. I don't know if you see what I mean, but like the levels of gray seem not enough to contain the nebulosity that we have here. That is one of the drawbacks that I see with a lot of those smart telescopes, and I think this drawback can be avoided if the telescope provides gain control, like the Dwarf Lamp Dwarf 3 does, and something I hope future smart telescopes will integrate, if we cooled the sensor of our smart telescopes, because the sensors are uncooled in all of the smart telescopes that I'm aware of for now, and that means that we accumulate a lot of thermal noise, which messes with our image. And I know there's a lot of people that believe that because we're taking short exposures of 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, then cooling of the sensor is not needed and is not effective. That is actually a myth. It is not true. The sensor is not given any time to cool down between exposures. So the sensor is always at a high temperature, and your dark current is accumulated as electrons per pixel per second. And when you look at the total integration time, you just take the electrons per pixel per second. For the total integration time, it is much, much higher for temperatures of like 30 degrees than it would be for temperatures of minus 10 degrees in Celsius, as we would have with a cooled sensor. So anyway, we are left with this, and if I were to try to do something like a noise exterminator on this image, because of the lack of bit depth there, we would get a horrible result. Trust me, I've tried. So now that I have this, I will actually stretch the image, and for that we could use the what I show in my tutorial, the SETI Astro statistical stretch, or I'll use like Bill Blenchen's stretch for that. It should give more or less the same result, and I'll put my target background at 0.15. So there we go. I'm going to apply that to the image, and we'll see what it looks like once it's stretched. Aha! Now we're getting somewhere. So we have both galaxies visible in the image, and I start to see that there is a good image hidden in this data. So let's keep going. First thing I will do is I will again use one of the paid plugins that I have, which is Star Exterminator. We're going to remove the stars from the image temporarily, but don't worry, we'll place them back at the end. It's just that we want to process the galaxies separately from the stars, so we temporarily remove the stars from our image. Bam, there we go. And now that the stars are removed, even though the image is unchanged, besides the removal of the stars, suddenly we can see much more clearly the IFN, the Integrated Flux Nebula, in there. So that is really cool. And what I also want to do is I want to get more details from the galaxy there. There's actually a lot of details in there, but because the image is so bright, it hides all of those details. But because we have all of the bit depths of the raw data, I should be able to do some HDR multi-scale transform to reveal that. But before that, now that we have stretched the image and there's more room to breathe between the IFN nebulosity and the background, I will do my noise exterminator, which is again a paid plugin for PixInsight, part of the overall cost of $500 for the software. Okay, here we go. Now we have a lot of noise that has been removed, and I will run an HDR multi-scale transform. And I like to do it in steps. I like to put 2 intensity, lightness mask, and just apply to the image, see what I get. And I kind of like what I see. We see a lot of details in the galaxies that were not visible just a moment ago, but I also like to play a bit around with the number of layers to see if I can get a better result. And I actually prefer this result to the previous one because the details are less aggressively sharpened than before, and also we get more details in the cigar galaxy here. Now, when I'm at this stage, we get to the artsy part of processing, which is curves transformation, which I find very difficult, and it's the only really place where we are not on Rails anymore. So we'll see exactly what I'm doing. I'm taking my curve for the whole image, and I will be trying to take it up a titch, and then also at the very bottom there, I want to get rid of the very bright background, but I'll add a point there to say, like, I still want the integrated flux nebula. So something like this is actually not bad at all, because we get a lot of the IFN, and I'm still darkening the background quite a bit. So I kind of like what I'm getting here, and so I will close the preview and apply this to the image. But you know, if I process the same image twice in a row, I'll always get different results because of how I did curves. That's what I mean when I say, like, this is like the artsy part of things, because this is not really repeatable unless you use exactly the same process or you're an AI. So I can still play with curves a tiny bit, see what I can achieve there. And here, as always, small moves are essential. And my main goal is to keep the IFN while trying to keep also the background from being too bright. Okay, I like this. Let's apply this to the image. We have both our galaxies. We have the IFN. This is getting really, really nice. And now I want to get some more color into my galaxies, because that's another drawback of the C-star. I'm not so sure exactly why, but the C-star images seem to have much less color, by default, than if I use like this expensive rig that I have here. I don't know if it's the optics, I don't know if it's the sensor settings, I don't know what it is, but it is what it is. So anyway, what I would do now is create a mask. So I'm going to take a luminance from this image. Then I'm going to open up a tool called histogram transformation, and I'm going to make those galaxies super bright and the background super dark. So I cut everything from the shadows, pump up the brightness, and something like this gives me very bright galaxies and very dark background. I can zoom in a bit. Yeah, I like that. So I'm going to apply that to my black and white version of this image. And then I want to run a process called convolution that will blur this image out. And I like to put something like, 30, 32, something like that. That blurs things really well. And then I can apply this as a mask to the image, so that now we will be applying changes only to those areas that we can see. But the red is very aggressive, so I'm going to stop showing the mask. And now again, I'm going to go to curves transformation, reset everything, go to saturation, open up a preview. And what I like to do is just do a tiny bit of saturation like that. And I just do it multiple times in a row. Okay, and you can see now we have a lot of colors in the galaxy, and we get into one of the other drawbacks of those C-star telescopes, and I do believe those are kind of linked to the uncooled characteristic of the sensor, which is like the kind of a weird mottled noise, the like color mottled noise that we have next to galaxies there. So we'll try to do something about this later. For now, I will go into my mask and invert it, and I'm going to reduce the color in the background, which should help a little bit with the balance of the image. Something like this. Okay, now I'm done with my mask. I can remove the mask, and I'm going to open up histogram transformation again, this time on the main image. So I'm going to select the main image, look at the preview, reset the settings, zoom out, and we're going to see what we can achieve by cutting away like this flat part of the histogram without cutting off pixels, or not too many pixels, and increasing the overall brightness. This would be the before and after. And it's definitely a more contrasty image while we retain the IFN. So I like what I see here, and I'm going to apply it to the image. Okay, so now I'll try to get rid of this weird mottle noise that we have around the galaxies, and I'll use a tool called SCNR, which should help me get rid of the green. Here we go. And now the image looks a bit more natural. The green has been turned into brown, which is also not ideal, but it is better than before. What I don't like now is the magenta hue that we have. What we could try to do about this is invert the image, because when the image is inverted, the magenta becomes green. And then I could try to apply again some SCNR on here and invert the image again, see what we get. And we get this, but now we've lost kind of the red color. So it's a bit like normally you would want this red color there. This purplish hue there should be reddish. So what I'll do is I'll use a script called color mask, try to select the magenta, and you can see it selected this area exactly what we need. Apply some convolution to this to blur this out. Okay. Apply the mask to the image and try to see if I can go to my curves again. And in there, I will remove some blue. Remove some blue, increase the red, and remove even more blue. Maybe we can also increase the chroma and try A, I think, and lower A tiny bit. There we go. Pam, apply to the image. Okay, now we've gotten mostly rid of that unpleasant magenta image. You really have to squint to see it, and we have a much better looking image now. So we're at the stage where I can remove the mask again, and we can place back the stars. So we'll go to Script, Utilities, Image Blend. In my mzn.to tutorial, I use a process called Pixel Math instead. But now that we have this script available, it's no longer necessary. You can use this script directly. And I just need to choose my main image without the stars. And then I use the stars that we extracted so long ago to place them back into the image. And I can validate that. And now we're getting what appears to be more or less a final image. But what you'll notice is that now the IFN is much less noticeable than when I didn't have stars in the image. So I want to control those stars a little bit. And for that, I will go to Script, Utilities, Star Reduction. And I can say that my target view is this image blend image. The starless view is our starless view, and I want to remove or to reduce the stars as much as possible. With those settings, I do a strong reduction of stars with 2 iterations, validate that. And now we have an image where the AFN is very visible. We have some very nice galaxies, and that's what we get. So that's how we got from this original image to this, and this is data that is fully from the sea star, not even from like a Bortle 1 or a dark zone, like super dark. It's not, we're not in like meteor crater or some place like in the United States where there's like zero light pollution whatsoever. And we're getting this. And this is with a $500 telescope. And I find this absolutely incredible. Okay, quick note to explain as well why this is not AI and this is not downloaded from the internet. This is proven. There's no doubt about it at all, because basically there's many reasons for that. But one of the main ones is that we have access to what I showed earlier in this video, which is those subframes there. Those subframes, right now it's a debayered subframe, so it was turned from the raw output of the sensor into a color image. But we get those in a bayered format, and we get this in the full bit depth of the sensor. And the image is properly affected by passing clouds, by vibrations if you step around the telescope, by wind as well, or by tracking errors. And currently AI is not able to generate raw images of 16 bits or 12 bit steps, and it's definitely not able to generate images that are bayered, meaning that each pixel is actually still black and white, and then we can debayer the image to get this. So this is a quick aside. I get a lot of time the questions like, okay, why? Those images are downloaded from the internet, just like the Samsung Moon thing that we had a few years ago, the controversy. Here we can say absolutely not, because we have access to the raw frames and we're able to double check exactly what is going on. Okay, and now I'm going to also quickly do the process on another image, which is this image here, the Trifid Nebula. And this time, again, it is from the same André, from the same Bortle 3 4 zone, but we have only 4 hours of integration time. Oh, and before we go to the Trifid Nebula, don't forget that if you want to support the channel, you can like the video. It really helps the channel out. And let me hear your thoughts down in the comments about this process of the Boat Galaxy and Cigar Galaxy and the fact that it came from S50, C-Star S50 data. If you want to support our channel as well and you're planning on buying anything from Amazon, Agena, High Point Scientific, etc., if you do so after clicking one of the links down in the description, it will help me out at no cost to you. And if you want to become a sponsor of the channel, you can become a channel member. It's the join button next to the subscribe button, or you can become a Patreon supporter. I have a link to my Patreon down in the description. You guys, thank you so much for making all of this possible. Anyway, let's go to the Trifid Nebula. And I'll do exactly what I did earlier, but a bit faster. So we're going to start with the image solver, so we know, so PixInsight knows exactly what we were pointing our telescope at. Then we can do our spectrophotometric color calibration. And we have the results here. It looks like very nice lines aligned with each of the star desired colors. This is the results that we get. Then we can run our blur exterminator. This is what we get with much tighter stars, which looks really nice. And at this stage, I'm ready to stretch the image. So I am going to stretch the image. This is what we get on the stretched image. We can remove the stars using Star Exterminator, bam. Then once we've removed the stars, we can really see the nebulosity. I'm going to apply some noise exterminator to remove a lot of the noise that we have in this image, bam. Now it's done, and we get to the artsy bit, which is curves. So curves transformation, I'm going to reset everything, open a preview so we see what we're doing, and I'm going to do something very similar to the galaxy that we just did, just darken the background quite a bit, but I want to still keep a lot of the nebulosity. Let's see how we can achieve that. Okay, so one curve is applied. Now we get a lot more contrast between all of those features. Let's see if we need to do a second layer of curves. Okay, I'll do a very slight second layer of curves. Here we go. And this time I'm not gonna separate the main subject from the background, because the background looks actually really nice without much color noise in it. So I'm just going to apply saturation directly to the image, and maybe some chroma as well, to really get a nice and punchy image like that. Something like this, and maybe a quick second layer of saturation on all of this. Bam, here we go. Now we're already getting a great result. Let's see what HDR multi-scale transform can do for us. I'm not sure I really want to use that tool on this. Actually, I do. Actually, I do. It's really revealing the core of the Iris Nebula. Let me try quickly some other layers just to see what we get. And I like when the number of layers is 6, and now we're getting like all of that cool nebulosity all around. This is such a cool image. 4 hours with the C-Star, and we're getting this. Let me add the stars back to the image. And here we go. Just like before, the stars are kind of eclipsing some of the surrounding nebulosity that we worked so hard to get back. So I'm going to again go to the utilities and do some star reduction. Validate this. This is what we get in terms of almost a final result. I see some greenish, yellowish stuff in the background, so I'm just going to quickly do some SCNR on this. Boop, and there we go. We have the final image of the Trifid Nebula taken with the C-Star S50 from a Bortle 3/Bortle 4 zone, 4 hours of integration time. Okay, and so based on that, the point I really wanted to make in this video is that it is possible to get amazing images with something as cheap and, as kind of like janky looking as the C-Star S50, even though like a real astrophotography rig like this one will give you better results in less time, but also at 10 times the price. And how much better? I would need to do a side-by-side comparison directly in a Bortle 4 zone once the Tokyo weather gets better. I'll try that, but let me tell you, it hasn't been very, very good at night these days, and we're now heading slowly but surely into the rainy season. So I'm having trouble doing the stuff that I want to do, like reviewing the SQA 106, that kind of stuff, or doing this kind of comparison. But again, the point of the video was not to do a comparison, but that show you that in the absolutes, this kind of smart telescope, while it, for a lot of people, it seems to be a toy, it actually can do amazing, amazing stuff. And I want to quickly point you to Andre's Astrobin page. Again, I'll put the link down in the description, but basically everything you see here is taken via the C-Star S30 or C-Star S50. And you can see even like M87 there, this jet from M87, this is one from the Hubble. You can actually see this relativistic jet with the C-Star. And if you're using something like the C-Star S30 for a wider field of view, you're able to get like both these galaxies in the same frame, actually 3 of them. And so I highly recommend that you have a look at Andre's work, because there's some amazing, amazing stuff in there with smart telescopes. This as well. This is incredible. This is honestly incredible. I'd be over the moon. Like 5 years ago, if I had achieved that with my normal rig, I'd be over the moon. And so that's where I'm coming from. We're getting some of the most amazing equipment that we have ever seen in astrophotography. There's been revolution in terms of the optics in this kind of telescope here, the SQF55, which is amazing. There's been revolutions in terms of mounts here. There's been revolutions in terms of cameras and camera sensors. I love the 585 in particular. And there's been revolutions in terms of the smart telescopes that are available to us. And once smart telescopes are able, now that smart telescopes are able to do equatorial modes, if someone came up with a smart telescope that had like an auto-guiding module, like I'd love to see a Bluetooth module, like auto-guiding module for the S50, for instance, or have a guiding chip integrated in the S50 Pro, for instance, because then you could have like equatorial mode, guiding, and then add an optional cooling of the sensor, and you'd get something that is just as good as a huge rig like this one. Like when I say huge, it is pretty small, but let me tell you that I am not transporting that with just one hand over a long distance compared to the C-Star S50, the Dwarf 3, or the C-Star S30, or even the Vaonis Vespera 2 that I've shown in another video, and also shown that it's definitely not a toy, even though it is a smart telescope. So with that, I really want to hear your thoughts down in the comments. What do you think of smart telescopes? Are they the future of astrophotography? Are you sad to see smart telescopes achieving such incredible results? Let's have some discussions down there. While you're there, you can like the video, it really helps the channel out. And if you want to support the channel even more at no cost to you, but you're planning to buy anything from Agena, High Point Scientific, First Light Optics, or even Amazon, even if it's completely unrelated to astrophotography, if you do so after clicking one of the links that I have down in the description, it will help me out, again, at no cost to you. But if you want to sponsor this channel directly, make these videos possible, and it's a lot of work, you can join my channel as a member. It's the join button next to the subscribe button, or you can become a Patreon supporter. The link to Patreon is down in the description. Some of my Patreon ranks have access to my videos early and without ads. And you guys, you know it, you make all of this possible. Thank you so much for your support. With that, thank you so much all for watching. Don't forget, whenever you can, to look up at the stars, and I'll see you next time.